if you have experienced traffic drop after major changes on your website or a website migration, you need to listen to this. So, someone posted on Reddit that they have a 15-year-old financial website, and that website experienced major traffic and visibility loss on Google after moving to HTTPS, which is very interesting that this is a financial website. So, it's your money, your life, and it was on HTTP and it was performing well. Anyway, so they moved it to HTTPS, and after that, things got messy. And then he goes on to say that they replaced their old WordPress theme and then they updated the content, right? And the old HTTP site scored top 3 in Google. They implemented 301 redirects and the rankings have not recovered. And some of the HTTP links still have not been crawled and updated by Google, which means they're still ranking in search and you can see the HTTP URLs in search. So, is there any hope for this to recover? And here's what John Mueller said. Moving to HTTPS is a bit like a site migration. All the URLs have to be recognized, recrawled, and repurposed individually. So, especially if this move was made a few days ago, you need to give it time to recover. In particular, don't use the URL removal tool to get rid of the HTTP URLs, since it will also hide the HTTPS URLs. I won't touch upon finally moving to HTTPS after so many years. Same comment I had. Anyway, so a lot of interesting things. If you are making a major or a big number of redirects on your website, whether it's from HTTP to HTTPS, domain change, whatever is going on there, or maybe you're removing a big part of your website, things happen, right? So if you're doing that, it's going to take Google a bit of a time. And here's something to note. URLs are processed individually. So obviously this is very time consuming and it can take some time. I wouldn't say months, depending obviously on the size of the website, it will vary. Another thing to take into account is that the asker here mentioned they replaced their old WordPress theme, right? So if you change the theme, that may have also changed a lot of things on the page, not just the content. It may added additional JavaScript. You may have changed the styling of the titles on the page and so on. So this may also impact your ranking. So whether you're going to recover to almost 100% or not depends also on the changes that happened on the page. So let's assume you just only changed the URLs, just the URLs. It may take some time for you to recover, okay? Depending on the size of the website, as John Miller just said, URLs are evaluated individually. So if you just change the URLs, just the URLs really, this is probably the cleanest and fastest migration that you may have needed to do. But if you changed other things, the design on the page, which here is the WordPress theme, yes, things are going to change. You may recover to 80%, 90%, because there are other factors. You have JavaScript, you have page speed. Is the new theme as fast as the old theme? You have styling. Is the header style the same? And so on. There's a lot of details that go into this, right? I also came across this thread here on Reddit as well. So someone was talking about how all hell broke loose after a site migration, and that he spent half a year rebuilding a web application so it can rank better. But it got worse 7 days after the migration. So first of all, this is too early to say. You're gonna experience a drop in the beginning, no matter what, most probably. So I wouldn't judge this. Like if I was in that person's position, I wouldn't make that judgment after 7 days. And then he's extremely frustrated. But then he said, the only consolation is that more pages are getting indexed. This is a good sign. And then they target very long tail keywords. My home page for the seed keyword totally got trashed. Okay, so he's seeing a lot of pages getting indexed. That's a good sign. The ranking for long tail keywords, you know what? This is also a good sign because obviously it's easier to rank for long tail keywords, but also if your URLs are just starting to get indexed, the first rankings you're going to see in visibility is for those easy long tail keywords. And then from there, they may start, think of it as Google is showing them to relevant queries, but also testing them in a sort of a small scale situation. And it's normal for them to get visibility for long tail, low search volume keywords first. And then if they are worthy, they're going to go a bit up and start getting visibility for more complex keywords, right? And that's why he's saying his homepage for the seed keyword, obviously this is going to be a more competitive, more high search volume, totally got trashed. So that is normal. But again, as I said, there are a lot of factors at play. Yes, a website migration will cause a drop, but whether you'll be able to recover and how fast you're going to be able to recover depends on the number of the URLs and what changes you actually made on the website. And then people gave a lot of advice, and I did notice here this good checklist. So some of the things you may want to check if you did a website migration. Did you get everything redirected? A lot of times I've seen myself developers perform a website migration, and for some reason they do not migrate some of the URLs. Oh, we don't need those right now. Yes, you don't need them, but they were on the other website. You need to handle them, right? Because right now Google is seeing a migration and 404s and it's a mess, and you want to make this as clean as possible. And then he says really small things. Sometimes there is a no index or a block on the dev site. That block or no index made it to the live site and was not turned off. So this is something you need to double check. But in this case, the person that asked the question mentioned that the URLs are getting indexed fast. And then the easiest way to find out is to check the source code for no index. And then how much did your content change? And I would also add how much your design changed. These things can matter, and you need to be very careful about the changes you're making. And then title tags, meta descriptions, proper headings, internal linking, schema, sitemap, would all of these things move properly? So what I do usually in site migrations, I back up all of these. And then after the site migration, you need to double check that all of these things have been moved correctly. Sometimes for some unknown reason, title tags do not get moved. Headings, as I said, in styling, they get lost. Internal linking, especially navigation link and footer links, I don't know why they get skipped sometimes in the migration, but you definitely need to double check those. And then check your robots.txt. How much content did you merge together? Did you have to combine pages? Sometimes during a redesign in a migration, it's also a rebrand and things get changed a lot, right? Did you check Google Search Console after launch and try to nail down the page issue? Which pages is the impact when it comes to rankings? And you also need to back up your rankings by page and by keyword. If you check, is the issue on a page level? Is there specific pages that are not performing? Is it a keyword? You need to dig down into this because maybe there's a specific problem with a specific type of pages. And then if you changed your primary domain name, you need actually to use the domain name change tool, right? So you need to use this change of address tool. Here is when not to use it. If you're changing from HTTP to HTTPS, you're moving some pages from one location to another. You're moving between www and non-www in the same domain, or moving a site without any user visible URL changes. So this is when not to use it, right? But you should use it if you're changing the URL. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is implement your 301, redirect from your old homepage to your new homepage, use the change of address tool, and then you have all the steps here. I really think this is a very, very important step, okay? And then another thing you need to do in website migration, and I highly recommend that, is forecasting, right? I like to forecast what was the expected traffic. Let's say you're doing a migration in May, right? I would like to have two metric. What is our average traffic in general? Because you need to understand what is normal and what is not normal for your website. So, for example, I worked on a website that they get on average 5K clicks, give or take, with the exception of weekends. And then they get 5K clicks, give or take, per day. So you understand what good looks like or what normal looks like. If I one day check the search console and I find that the website got 1.5K clicks, oh, what's going on there? Or we got 7K clicks. I would ask the same question because I know we're Around 5K. So 4.5K is normal, 5.5K is normal. Like, you know, the range of what normalcy looks like for your website. And then the second thing is forecast. So you want to forecast, and I have a guide, you can search for it, and I'm going to link to it in the description as well. And it's pretty simple. It helps you forecast, right? So you add the clicks and you use this formula. And if your migration is in May, you want to forecast what is the traffic you should have gotten in May normally if you did not do any site migration. And then you may want to account. So let's say your calculations say you should be getting normally 20K clicks in May if things stay normal. And then you may want to account for the migration. You have a different matrix and say, okay, I expect initial loss of 30% traffic. And that would look like, instead of getting those 20K, I may get 14K. So between 14K and 20K, this is what's going to happen initially. And from there, you can understand the severity of the migration. So yeah, I guess the summary of this is that there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to website migration. Even if you're doing from an HTTP to an HTTPS, it's still a website migration. A lot of things impact your performance in search. You are going to have an initial dip no matter what. The length of the dip and how strong that dip is and whether you're going to fully recover or not depend on what type of changes you've made. Did you change the content? Did you change the design? And then the number of URLs you have on the website. Is everything implemented correctly? You redirected everything. You followed all the steps. You used the domain name change tool if needed. So yeah, hope you found this useful and see you next video. Bye.